Welcome to the Ben Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source, Ben's locally owned media company and weekly newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community. Support us through our member program at bensource.com.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Ben Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I'm Aaron Switzer, publisher of The Source and producer of this podcast, Ben Don't Break. Today on the show, we are thrilled to welcome Brian August, the new executive director of the Tower Theater Foundation. Brian stepped into the role this summer, bringing more than 20 years of leadership experience across nonprofit, private, and global sectors. Before joining the Tower, Brian served as Chief Growth Officer at CauseMic, is that right?
CauseMic.
CauseMic.
It's fine.
Where he helped nonprofits strengthen governance, scale community impact, and optimize strategy. He also spent over 6 years at the Oregon Humane Society with advanced degrees in law, business, and psychology, plus a strong track record of board service, including right here in Central Oregon. Brian brings both vision and dedication to his new work at the Tower. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. And what an intro. I can't top
Yeah,
that. Can we
I
just,
know,
we're good.
I
Thanks for
realize,
coming.
I think this is the second week in a row that I've messed up something in the intro. I'd probably read these to the people before I
I will correct. I don't have an advanced degree in psychology. I have a degree in psychology, but other than through practice of working with nonprofits and boards and leaders, I think you have to have some tendency towards psychology.
By now, you probably have an honorary degree in psychology.
I'm just waiting for one college to call.
And if you're working at the Tower, then by the end, you'll certainly have graduated.
Yeah,
so.
or at least have the acting chops to pass it off as having that advanced psychology degree.
That's right. So, Brian, what is your? How did you get started in your interest in the arts? You can go back as far as you want, but what leads someone like yourself into that canal?
Yeah, well, I've always had an interest in the arts, appreciation for music and performance. Whether we were living in a small town in Wisconsin or in Thailand, we'd always carve out time to go partake of the arts wherever we were, because partaking of the arts in Thailand is very different than partaking of the arts here. It's just different. And it combined with my passion for nonprofits and really helping them find their groove and helping them scale their impact into the community. And I think there's, given our geopolitical environment right now, I think there's a huge need to focus on these areas where there was maybe strong government support and community support. Things are feeling a little bit uncertain now.
Yeah, sure.
And so being able to bring some of the expertise that I have to the table to benefit performing arts and to provide a path forward, I think the timing is right, and it feels like I can do a small part to help maybe change the environment a bit, at least what I have control of.
What you mentioned Thailand, so that's fascinating. What's your connection to Thailand? Thai arts.
Yeah, well, so back in, this would have been 2001, 2002, I did a program through USAID. That worked.
Probably no longer exists.
I was going to say rest in peace, but maybe it'll come back. Right. But they funded MBAs or business school graduates to go over to developing emerging economies and work with small businesses, government entities, non-government entities to help them accelerate their growth and bring over the latest in thinking in operations or supply chain or finance or whatever the area was. Yeah. So as part of this program, I was in Thailand for a couple of years working with some of the small and medium-sized Thai businesses, which hopefully, I don't know if listeners will remember, but in 1997, 98, there was a huge financial crash in Asia. And so USAID stepped in to try to provide some expertise to stabilize the region. So I had that unique opportunity to go over and work with all sorts of businesses, anything from apparel manufacturers, ceramic manufacturers, delivery services, government promotion offices, whatever was needed.
What was the school connection that got you to USAID?
So there was a consortium of top business schools that worked with this program, and it was administered through the UNC Keenan School of Business.
Okay.
I went to Carnegie Mellon for my MBA, and that was one of the consortium schools that would send people over, give the opportunity to apply to go over to help these organizations.
Is it, I'm sure when you say Thailand, I would bet 90% of the people think White Lotus now. Like how awesome it is over there, but dangerous.
Yeah,
awesome.
I that may be a side of Thailand that I missed for a variety of reasons. I went over there with my now wife, and we had a lovely life there. We got to travel around. I had learned Thai, and so that was really helpful to just navigate some of the areas where English wasn't spoken. But it was an amazing country and just amazing people there.
And what was the next step when you emerged from Thailand?
Oh boy, it was a series of corporate jobs, I would say. Okay. Anything from Home Depot. At one point, I was turning around a couple of pulp mills in the Midwest. Oh. So we were basically they were operating out of bankruptcy. So they were financially bankrupt, but operationally they were profitable. So meaning they were built. And once they were built, they could run profitably, but you could never service the debt that had been used to build them. So help turn them around, sell them to an industry player, and then move to San Francisco, where I worked for The Gap for a number of years in strategic sourcing and strategy, and then moved over to a startup, as everybody in the Bay Area, I think, eventually does. A failing startup, I should say, and was there for a few years. And then my wife and I decided to move to Portland, or I should say back to Portland. We'd been there at a certain point, and I have family there. And so moving back to Portland, I joined a group called Slalom Consulting, which is an international strategy and business technology consulting firm with offices all over the world. Wow. And I was there for about 5 or so years, doing a lot of supply chain, project management, some program management as well. And that was when I became aware of the opportunity at the Oregon Humane Society, who was recruiting their very first COO. They were, at the time I joined them, they were a very strong organization, but they were about to embark on what turned out to be a $40 million expansion project, which involves construction, fundraising, all the things.
Seems like an odd swerve.
It is.
Gap. And then
really?
Oregon Humane Society.
I didn't even mention the pre-Thailand working in aerospace and the wine business down in Modesto for Gallo. So
maybe it's just a series of curves.
So, but in some respects, it took everything that I had done for clients and internally and said, let's pull this all together and really be able to help a team scale and get to the next level. Yeah. So I came in as their first COO, and what I liked about the role is I was coaching and mentoring executives who I was helping them then coach their teams and trying to develop leadership capability, operational excellence, financial excellence. And
so at Oregon Humane Society, are you overseeing or in communication with all of the humane societies in the state?
Yeah, so the Humane Society setup, each Humane Society or SPCA is their very own entity. Okay. There is a Humane Society of the United States, and that's its own organization. No assets are shared, no board of directors are shared. They are completely independent organizations. Same thing in Oregon. So I'm actually on the board here for the Humane Society of Central Oregon, which is unrelated to the Oregon Humane Society. Okay. Different board, different assets, different governing model, different service areas. The Oregon Humane Society does tend to hit the majority of the state for different services, whereas Humane Society of Central Oregon, we're really focused on Central Oregon and trying to improve the lives of pets and people here. Yeah. So that, that's a commonly held perception that they're all related, and they really aren't.
I think Oregon Humane Society is a branding problem.
Oh yeah,
they're huge. If they're all of Oregon, then they've got to work with Central Oregon and these other things.
Well, most of those humane societies do work together. They're very collaborative, and in some respects,
but if you're Oregon, you're bigger than Central Oregon. You're overseeing Central Oregon, in my mind.
Yes, yes. I think that may be right, although some people may perceive that as I want to give to my Humane Society, and therefore I'm going to give to the Humane Society of Central Oregon versus one that is based in Portland, most of their services are offered in Portland, even if they support other organizations across the state.
We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Give to the Central Oregon one.
Exactly.
I mean, you could get fooled into thinking that somehow you're helping all of Oregon's humane societies if you're
that's a common criticism of the Humane Society of the United States is it's confusing because I'm giving to them, but what do you mean you want me to give to you? And they're not related to us. And what I will say is most of the humane societies, particularly in Oregon, have a really great working relationship, really supportive of each other. And in that respect, coming into the Tower Theater and being pretty new to the performing arts, totally new to the performing arts, is what I found is the performing arts organizations have a similar bend in terms of really helpful with each other, trying to build each other up, trying to raise the whole community. And I really appreciate that. That's what I loved about working with animals and people is now getting to the performing arts and working with other organizations. I find a very similar mindset to say, how do we do more together?
How did the Tower pop up on the radar? Because what were you at the Oregon Humane Society before coming to the Tower?
I'd actually left the Oregon Humane Society in the spring of 23, late spring, and I joined a group called CauseMic, which you mentioned during the introduction, and that is CauseMic. It is spelled, in fairness, it's spelled M-I-C, C-A-U-S-E-M-I-C, so I can see that, but it's CauseMic. And they're a more boutique strategy, technology, and fundraising focused agency and firm. And so I joined them to help bring some of the nonprofit strategy, board work, executive director work to the table for them. So I was with them, and at that point, because I was no longer at a physical location like the Humane Society, I could work from anywhere. And my wife and I have, for a long time, wanted to get over to Bend, but this was a great opportunity. So we moved over in the summer of 2023. And I worked remotely for them, and we had a lot of clients in Portland, but we worked all over the country with organizations. So I was at CauseMic. And then I became aware that the Tower Theater that Ray Soley announced in the paper he was retiring. They had kicked off a process. And so I started reading more about it. And just in terms of a central place of connection for Bend and the surrounding areas, I'm like, what an iconic institution. This is really, when you look at the resurgence of Bend in the late 90s, early 2000s, this tracks it. And so that was really the idea of taking something that was in really good shape and really had made its mark and saying, what's next? Like, oh, this sounds really interesting. And then when I started meeting with the board and then meeting with some of the staff, every time I met with a group from there, I got more and more interested and more excited. And eventually they offered me the role and I accepted.
Ray's such an iconic figure in the cultural landscape here in Central Oregon, and you're stepping in behind that. How do you step out of that shadow? How do you advance the Tower beyond that? And what are some of your thoughts around that?
It's a great question. One, I keep Ray on speed dial, just in case.
Right, it's helpful.
So there's a few things. I think what I've mentioned to Ray and to the board is this was one of the best succession plans that I've seen, and I've worked with organizations of huge organizations and small organizations, but this was really well set up, and Ray was really thoughtful, and the board was really thoughtful in terms of how do we set someone up for success? What is it we want to do, and where are we going to go? So coming in behind Ray, one is having his full support, and his onboarding me and introducing me has been so incredible in terms of the community accepting and helping, the staff accepting and helping, the board accepting and helping. So that's one of the things. I think the other thing is, in some respects, not coming from a performing arts background, I don't feel like I have to outshine Ray. Ray's Ray. People keep saying, "Oh, you're replacing Ray." I'm like, I am succeeding Ray. There is no replacing Ray. Ray was one of a kind, and that's great. But one of the things they did as part of that succession planning is they split up his role, because he used to do all the programming as well as the ED work, and it's a lot, and you really have to have a special skill set to do that. They hired someone specifically to drive programming named Stacy Koff, who is a wonderful event director. She worked for Four Peaks, or Four Peaks was her. I shouldn't say she worked for. Right. Four Peaks was her.
She is Four Peaks.
She is Four Peaks. And so she is now doing our programming and brought in a director of production. So a little bit more direction at the actual operational level for the theater. Sure. And I think have set up some resources where I'm coaching, developing, guiding them, and then working with the board and talking to people in the community to say like, hey, what's the next iteration look like? We've done some great things for the community, and I think we can continue to build on that and do more. And so that makes it easier in terms of it's not trying to outshine Ray or put my own stamp on it. It's really just saying like, hey, for the organization, where do we need to go next, and how are we going to get there?
I think when people imagine coming into that position, it's like you took all the fun stuff off your plate. It's like they think I'm going to come in there and it's going to be awesome. I'm going to bring taiko drumming and modern dance or whatever.
Well, so yeah, and people have been, whenever I say, I'm now at the Tower Theater, and it's like a list of,
they're like, here's what I want you to bring,
this, and this, and I'm like,
do you know this band?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And the nice thing is I can say, well, let me put you in touch with our programming director, or let me forward that to programming director. So that part is fine. I think I am working with them. So I'm learning. And basically I'm having Stacy kind of sit with me and say, hey, tell me about your strategy for a season. How do we fill this up? And I think what I can bring is not necessarily knowing the latest act or the hottest act, but saying like, hey, how do we set this up financially to be successful? And we're a nonprofit. So in terms of figuring out our funding, how we structure shows so that there are some shows that we know will make money. Right. But our mission is to bring kind of a variety of performing arts to Central Oregon. So it's understanding how do we use our levers to bring more to the community, expose them maybe to things they haven't seen before, support. We also have some mission-based work called Lesson Plan, which basically goes out and works with schools and children in the area, in a whole 3-county area, and either brings artists out to those schools or the reservation, or brings those kids in for basically no-cost performances. That's the mission work. So understanding what we do to create the resources to be able to do that, that's where I can really help bring that together with the programming and say, like, let's think about how we can do this in a way that enables us to actually scale our mission. So that, it's not giving up the fun part, but it's recognizing there are other people that are way better at that than me.
Well, you get your fun in a different way.
Budgets, spreadsheets,
numbers.
Who doesn't think those are fun?
Love accounting. It's getting. I do like successful events that are successful on the bottom line. More than I like programming. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, the programming is really interesting because for me, as I think through that, I think there's maybe a tendency to go like black or white. Did it make money or didn't it? And for me, that component has to be considered so that you can be sustainable, so that, in 10, 15 years, if I'm walking away, like there's a really strong organization that people can build off of. Yeah. Same thing for all the team. But I think when the first few shows that I went to, what I would really marveled at and what I want to make sure that we don't lose touch with is watching people walk out of a show. And whether they are smiling, they're crying, hopefully because the show moved them emotionally, not for other reasons, whether they are disagreeing and talking animatedly with their neighbor, whether they have met someone there in the concession line and started going back and forth. If you can move someone, if you can have them come out changed by the experience, even just a little bit, that's the magic part. And that's what we're focused on.
You mentioned at the beginning the kind of headwinds from federal policy, cutting a lot of the support there. And, being kind, I think the vision there is that, okay, well, the federal government's not going to play this role. So people have to understand at the state and local level that they have a bigger role now. I mean, this is the trickle-down theory, right? Is like, well, we're not going to pay for it up here, so you're going to be doing better and you're going to be contributing. But we're in that's a transitionary concept, to return to that model. And do you see that as your role? I mean, how are you going to backfill those
If,
that granting.
I see that as all of our roles, nonprofit leaders, but even as just individuals and thinking through that. And fortunately for us, in some respect, and you were very kind in how you described how this is going to transition and it'll all be fine.
I try to
and
give
it's
them the
just
benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah,
because it
you're-
looks pretty grim, when you look at the suddenness and the level of the cuts. I think about the kind of money that the high desert lost and pullback, and you're like, philosophically, sure, I understand if you've got a change in policy and want to do this. My feeling would be you might want to give them a little heads up, a little transitionary efforts, but that's not the way it's going forward. It's very much like today's the beginning of the rest of your life. So start planning, and that's hard.
It's a great point. And so, I mean, I have a mantra that I kind of go with because you never know what situation you're going to walk into, but it's what can you do with where you are, what you have. Yeah. This is where we are. This is what's happened. And our only choice, we can complain about it, but really our only choice is to respond. And that's the federal government. Could be personnel issues, could be financial issues. And It's like, what are you going to do now? Because that's the only thing you can influence, really. So I think it is part of our role as nonprofit leaders, as individuals, to look at this and say, what do we value in the community? And that's hard because there's a lot of really great, outstanding programming in the communities. I happen to think the Tower Theater is an enormous contributor to the community, our well-being, our opportunity to experience any kind of new performing arts, support schools in terms of the programming that we do with our lesson plan. I mean, I think these are all services to the community that we're able to provide. And so, yes, we have to explain, even though we weren't reliant necessarily on federal funding, there's a trickle down the other way where, well, if the federal government is stepping back, the state government, as Oregon typically does, and is they'll step up and fund. But that just means there's a little bit more belt tightening. The state has to make prioritization trade-offs.
Your top donors are getting pulled now, and they used to get pulled in 15 directions. Now they're getting pulled in 100 different directions with regard to funding. So.
Yeah, and for me, whether that's almost a side point to you still want to connect with donors or prospective donors or members and supporters to say, to understand, what do you value? Yeah. What is it about this that inspires you to give? And how do we make that possible for you? Yeah. And whether that is through planned giving and you would like to leave you're worried now, but you'd love to leave a gift for when you're gone to make sure it carries on, or if you want to support at whatever level that you're comfortable with, our job is to make that compelling case, to make sure we're connecting with what their wishes and what their desire is, and to be the utmost in terms of stewards of effectively using those generous contributions that people choose to give to us.
What do you see as not your biggest challenge, but the most exciting thing that you hope to bring? Like, as you've gotten in now, I mean, I don't know if you're far enough into your tenure that you 5 weeks. Like that you're going to tear down a wall and blot the back.
It may be a bit generic of an answer. So.
Right. But what gets you excited about the future?
I think, and this is me learning about the performing arts landscape here, is one, I think Bend really punches above its weight, so to speak. I mean, when you look at the acts that come through, Hayden Homes Amphitheater does an amazing job through Live Nation, bringing in some incredible acts. I think the Tower Theater similarly brings in really top acts. And you look at the size of the theaters, I don't know exactly how many the amphitheater holds, 8,000 or 9,000, maybe 10,000. And our theater is 460. And so maybe there's opportunities to expand that. It's a bigger logistic challenge. But you start to look at what are the different venues and different opportunities to bring different genres, different experiences with performing arts to Bend. And as we grow, as our population has really skyrocketed, as the demographics change in this area, how are we changing to not just reflect the demographics, but to provide those new experiences and exposure to things that we may otherwise not have the opportunity to experience? I mean, I think that's for me is really the ultimate goal. And that's the thing that gets me excited is we do a really great job in terms of the shows that we're bringing. But as we dig into our programming and figure out like, hey, what are our demographics like? How are we engaging kids? How are we engaging teens to 20s? How are we engaging 30? Every generation and every demographic has things that they really are attracted to. And so how do we make sure that we are servicing that?
Yeah. I mean, with the growth in population, the change in just that comes with having more people who are interested in cultural activities that are divergent or different, and you're in a great spot. I mean, just over the course of the time that I've watched the tower and you see the community grow, you're just able to bring a broader array of things. I spoke with the guy who's trying to bring, you probably met him, with Ben Dance and bring some modern dance.
Peter?
That would
Yeah.
that would never have been possible. You know, I mean, we got some, but they were so small and so isolated. It wasn't something that was really going to be sustainable. But you know, I'm speaking of my personal, you know, preference, but that would be incredible. You know.
Yeah, and I think part of what might be an opportunity for the theater is being a conduit for that. So it's not just our own things, but how are we supporting the arts community in general and enabling that or helping with that and using our position and our abilities to enhance performing arts across the spectrum and not just for, you know, our shows. It's really talking about that community and building that up and making connections and collaborating. And I think that's where the orientation of the performing arts groups that I've met here, that collaboration, that's where that comes into play, is we can do more together than we can just kind of all doing our own thing.
I think that's a byproduct of I think that's going to increasingly be a positive byproduct of the cutting of that federal funding, because you can see that stepping out of the arts and into journalism is way more collaboration, because you have to sharing of content, sharing of ideas, just like, you know, kind of that, you know, we're what's left, we're what's here, you know, and only by assisting each other. Whereas before was a much more competitive environment. And I can see the same thing in the arts, where a lot of I mean, you've been in nonprofits enough. A lot of times they go ivory tower. They're fundraising for themselves and themselves alone, even though they often duplicate services, and that's not helpful. And I don't know, and I can't imagine that being a recipe for success as things become more competitive.
Yeah, I think it's a question of like, is there a single pie and you're dividing that up and someone just tries to get the biggest piece, or you're like, hey, can we expand this pie?
The pie. Those
All the
pie piggies.
Darn it. Yeah. The pie grabbers. Or is there a different way to look at this? Can we make the pie bigger? Can we change the landscape? Can I bring whipped cream to the pie? That analogy has probably...
That was a good one. No, I'm giving it that
like,
one.
I'm putting whipped cream and cherry on top. I don't know. But interesting that you bring up journalism, because I while the arts, it feels like we're under fire, journalism, like this predates kind of this most recent things. I can't imagine, like I'm curious about that cooperation and kind of collaboration, because it's always been a cutthroat industry.
Yeah.
But like, I'm curious, are you seeing...
Oh, it feels way less so now.
Okay.
Way less so, because you have changes in models. You've now got nonprofit models. You've got groups that are overarching. You see now with even cuts in, especially now with the cuts in public funding, where they're just trying to sort that out. But, you know, they're coming into the fold less, hey, we're radio, we're TV, we're print. You see a little bit like we're news providers, and we help them, they help us. You'll see some OPB content appear in newspapers. You'll see OPB riffing off stories that done. So, yeah, it's definitely a very interesting, and I feel less competitive environment. There's just fewer people around, and the pie is not as big, but there also aren't as many folks who want to eat that pie, you know, and so there's a little bit more to go around. So at least that's the way I feel. And you know, I think that for everybody as they scale or figure out their niche, you know, some people had hopes and aspirations of being a statewide newspaper, or we're going to be a regional newspaper. And maybe that's gone by the wayside and you're going to be really hyper local. And there's still a lot of need and demand for that. And then again, like I mentioned, you have nonprofit coming into that space. And what does that look like? Some universities are now. So it's a fascinating time. And how it settles out is just like the same way now you look at the arts and what's going to happen with, quite a bit less funding and how that rolls.
Yeah, it's as you think through it, there's always a question of, okay, when we get to steady state, and I think what people are starting to realize is there's no steady state. You get to the next, and then some environment shifts. It can shift for the better,
right?
It can shift for the worse. But the one thing that I found is it's probably not going to stay where it is. It'll maybe for a couple of years, but eventually some dynamic that is outside of your control is going to change. And again, your choice is, what do I do with what we have now, or what do we do with what's available to us now?
I think everybody thought that the digital age was going to be, I mean, you can think back 10 years and it was like, oh my gosh, this industry is changing so quickly. And it's like, we'll just adapt. And once we adapt, we'll be ready for the next decade. And it just speeds up every year. And now I kind of think, especially in like a newsroom, 6 months, that's a long time to be in one job description. As a journalist, the end of 6 months, it's a new website, or hey, look, this TikTok took over. Now we're TikTokers, and however that goes. But the pace of change is pretty consistent now. I think it's consistently
accelerating.
Yeah.
Well, I was listening to a podcast regarding AI, the AI Daily Brief, and it's a great podcast, but it is also a podcast that will scare you when you listen to it every day of like, oh, I'm so far behind. We are so far behind.
Because they're talking, and I do that a lot in the office.
Right? They talk about like, oh, I put this into ChatGPT 5, which they just released, and it spun up a new website. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And it worked, and then all the links worked, and we just had to revise. Having been in strategy, fundraising, technology with CauseMic, one of the questions is, what does AI mean for nonprofits in terms of like copywriting, which I think for a news organization as well, that's been front and center. And who's scraping your content? Who's creating content that, in some respects, is pretty darn good? And so these are things you have to wrestle with of like, well, how do we navigate this? We don't get a choice if AI comes into the mainstream or not. It's here, and it's running fast. So our question is, well, what do you want to do about it?
Yeah, that's another example, I think, of, like if you thought it was fast before, if you thought you little robots haven't, how many little robots do you have in your office? Because they work pretty fast.
Yeah.
And they change things pretty quickly.
Yeah, they do.
So, and we just finished coming up with a new AI policy, and and it's how you're using it in different aspects. And are you using it to generate content? We don't. We use it to modify our content for different platforms, and we try to put guardrails on what we're doing, but you can see where this is going. I mean, there are whole publications out there that are being created entirely with AI.
Oh, yeah.
And they appear to look very similar to publications that you otherwise wouldn't look. But they haven't quite gotten to the point where they look like our publication. I think that will be very hard to pull off, and that's kind of our goal, to make sure they can't.
Yeah. Well, it's offering you, like, we have a unique offering for our community of readers, listeners, consumers. Yeah. And how do we continue to evolve with that? Yeah. Because that's where AI, I think, might struggle a bit to anticipate that.
Yeah. So, well, we're at the end of our time.
Oh.
No.
Sorry to get us off track there.
No,
at the
it was
end.
good. I liked getting off track a little bit. That was usually we don't flip the script like that. We're gonna have get you in here again, and you can just podcast me.
Anytime you need a guest interviewer, I'm happy to step in, Megan. Hopefully, I'm not stepping on your toes there. But if you don't mind, a little plug for the theater.
No, that's what I was always at the conclusion. What we leave out? What do you want to let listeners know?
I just want folks to remember that we are a nonprofit, a 501c3. Towertheater.org is the place to find us. We have an incredible lineup of artists coming over the next 6 to 8 months that I'm so excited. It's such a good programming lineup, and I can't wait. So I invite everyone to go to the website, follow us on social medias, all of them. And and next time you're at the theater, please say hi to me. I love meeting people and understanding what type of impact, maybe stories about when they were kids, they went to the theater. I love to hear that. So, cool. And I really appreciate you all having me on. Thank you.
No doubt. Well, Brian, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
This has been the Bend Don't Break podcast. If you like what you heard, you can go on the website and support us through our member program. Be generous. It lets us chat about AI, even though we thought we were going to do one on the tower. We had swerved. And I blame Brian.
And hopefully Nicole, my marketing director, does not give me the riot act when I get back.
It's going to be like, you had 30 minutes and 15 of it was about cool stuff.
Really? You started asking questions about...
Oh, right?
Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bensource.com.